All right, so we're back with our 57 T-Bird. We've got this big empty passenger cargo area that is sans a dash, gauges, and all of that stuff that's important. I have some round bar, an old dash, some expanded steel, an EJ, and all sorts of miscellaneous components from a 63 Thunderbird. And yes, ours is a 57. These are from a 63. So our most important component is our EJ, and he's gonna tell you what we're gonna do with all these miscellaneous pieces.
So the owner, and I agree, likes the 63 setup much better than what was in the original 57. So we're gonna integrate a lot of the feel of the 63 interior into this car, so you'll have more of a separate cockpit feel, much more symmetrical. So this is the original 63 dash. Most of it is made out of foam and just covered in this cracked up old vinyl. So it's not something that we can really reuse, but we do like the look and the shape of it. So I'm going to take this round bar that she showed you earlier, and I'm going to run it around this rim area here, all the way around, so that it dead ends right at the end. We'll weld some little tabs so it can mount up here and keep our 57 defrost vents and everything in place. Then I'm going to make another piece of round bar that's actually going to follow the contour of the door and come down. And if you look in here, this is where the original lower mounts were for the original dash. So I'll curl that piece around, we'll weld a washer or something in here to capture that, and then bring it back up. And that will actually give us our frame, so we have a removable dash frame to attach everything to. At that point, I'm going to bend a piece of round bar that fits these contours on each side. That will attach to our round bar that we have screwed on. Bring those pieces together. And as I do that, I'm going to incorporate this original piece so we can use the 63 gauges. And then all of that pile of aluminum trim, we want to incorporate as much of that as possible into this dash setup as well. So will be a lot of bouncing back and forth, the original trim and sizing and shaping and getting it together. Once I have that round bar frame together, we can actually use that expanded steel, which shapes very nicely, and get this nice shape that we have over the top of everything made out of the expanded steel. And then we will cover all of that in fiberglass. Alright, so I'm going to start actually building the shape of the dash now, using this original dash as my template and this 1/4 inch round bar. So you can see I've got this first one started to bend. I got a couple little spots that I got to work out. So I'm going to make another piece just like this, run it around here on the other side, and then actually do a junction in between these two parts there and probably down here across, and then I'll have my basic shape. I'll move that over, get it welded into my frame here, right directly across the front. And then once I get that welded in, I'll start using the bar to just make any little supports or anything that I'm also going to need. And then we'll jump onto this expanded steel, and hopefully if I don't start this thing on fire welding these couple of pieces on here, I can still use this to shape my expanded steel and actually sheet my frame and get it ready to lay fiberglass on it. Alright, so I took the frame off of here, set it on, got it tacked, measured, centered. Looks really good. Better than I had imagined it was going to come out at this point.
Hold on, I want to get a better view so we can get that 3D image.
Yeah, and people can picture it filled in before we get the expanded steel on there and everything.
Okay.
Right now, I don't know if I can see it that way or if I can just see it that way. So my next step is I'm going to get this leveled out. It's pretty much where I want it.
That's from the 63.
Yeah,
that's
the
our
actual 63 part. And then I'm going to make another round bar frame that frames this bottom in. You know, kind of like so. And get that taped in place. And then I'll make some pieces that swoop down from here. And I'll bend them to look nice to fill in the gap in between. A little more through here just to make this all one nice framed piece. All right, so step 182 of the dash is completed. Other than I think of one or two little pipes I'll put into for strength, but I've got my basic shape down here now. So now we're going to go over to the original dash again and try to figure out what size piece I'm going to cut of the expanded steel. And I'm going to try to do all of this top piece in one piece of expanded steel. So I'll cut one roughly this size and then attach the edges probably with a clamp or something. And then I'm just going to use the rubber mallet and shape that expanded steel so I get all of these curves, this curve over the top, the little indent coming down for the stereo heater, all of that, and get around the top curve of this little visor. Alright, so this is what the finished unfiberglassed dash is going to look like, at least the top and the center console. We're going to start working on getting the steering column mounts and the gauge bezel, all of that stuff mounted here in this section in the driver area. But this is what we've got so far. But here is the top section all ready for the fiberglass to get laid on. So I am going to get to it. Alright, this is the original dash. I am going to get all this plastic and everything cut off of it, out of the way, get it down to steel, and then figure out what pieces I want to reclaim to use on the new dash so we can get these gauges mounted. This mounted where I want it, it still comes all off without being attached to the car anywhere. This is where the column will slide through. No problem there. Fits on the back. I got this whole underside skirted and attached to the original dash bezel, or the dash frame for the bezel. And then I ran a piece across here that actually sits, so the bezel sits right on top of this and bolts into these holes. So we'll have the original 63 gauge bezel in there. Problem with that is it's got three like 4.5 inch gauges there, and then on one side under the gauge it's got a wiper knob, and on the other side we've got the headlights. So we're also going to need a key, because this is not going to be a column key, it's going to be on the dash, and anything else that we want to fit under here. So my next plan is I'm going to bend another piece of round bar, about like so. That will drop down like that.
Your big mitt's in the way there.
So yeah, there'll be a piece that drops down about like that. This will be a flat panel across the front underneath the gauge bezels. And we can have the key, we can put heater switches, anything like that in there, because there's not going to be a lot of room left in the middle once the screen and that goes in. And then I'll take some more expanded steel and shape this bottom, curve it up to it, around to it, make it look nice, so that we've got something good to lay the fiberglass on and get it padded. So I'm going to go ahead and get that tacked in and try to get this finished up today before we get out of here. Yeah, I'm just not seeing this piece fit in there like I wanted to. So I'm going to go ahead and move on to the other side. Maybe I'll get some ideas while I'm working on that side over there. And yeah, that's about it. Alright, so I got my template piece bent up. So I'm going to make 2 of these. We'll get them fitted in here. And then we get the expanded steel and start feeding that into a nice little curve up across the top here. So we'll go get these bent up quick. Piece of expanded steel cut. Let's see if I can find a big enough piece of cardboard so I get some kind of template for the thing. At least a rough idea of what size I need, and go from there. so the dash is pretty much all fabbed up. I've got a couple of pieces I want to put along the bottom just for padding, but I'll wait till we put the doors on and get that done so I know where I want the armrest to run through, and then we'll line those all up so that they meet right on the ends. But in that, we're pretty good. We got the steering column, all the gauges in, or our fake steering column, center console where it's going to meet and run through, and I've got the passenger compartment. Once we take this off, I'm going to toy with the idea of possibly putting a glove box door in there that pops down, at least big enough to put some paper and some other little stuff in, and then that'll be the screen there right above that piece of corrugated aluminum. And then it kind of bends up and under. If you look on the side, we'll have a little map light or something that points down there, right up front, down the center there, right there will be a vent that comes out that'll probably blow right and left. There's all kinds of options for that. I could put a vent there on the left side of the steering column and put a vent down there on the bottom. That spot around the steering column over there, I'm going to have probably some kind of trimmed metal. I'm thinking maybe a turned piece of stainless, because that's what the 57 had, so we could bring some of the 57 back in. So right in there, and then that 2.5-inch gap going across there will also be the same type of trim. And then that piece coming up the middle where the screen's going to go, and then that's going to wrap around the side. You can see the little lump there where the expanded steel comes around. That is a door top that runs across, so that will match up and run across the top of the doors. And got plenty of leg room in there. So yeah, we're pretty good with that section there. Tomorrow we're going to try to get the body mounted on the chassis. I finally got all the isolators and stuff for that, so we can go ahead and get this thing rubber mounted and make sure that I've got everything solid, doors where I want them, and we'll start dealing with the doors. And then I need to figure out, hold on one second, need to figure out exactly what I'm going to do back here. I've got some short Mustang seats. We're going to see if we can use like the Shelby Mustang type with the lower backs that'll go in for our seats here. But the convertible top sits back there on I think on these bolts on that side and on that side, but I've got the top here, so I'm going to pull the top out, get that mounted back there, and figure out what we need to do and what I can and can't close up in the back. We also need to call up Flynn Audio and figure out what size screen they're going to be using, what else they're going to need for buttons, where we're going to stash speakers, all of that stuff, so that I can finish fabbing this interior and get it in fiberglass. So I will see you all later. I'm out.